beautiful. Thank you. Hey, I like that. Oh, peace looks so good on you. Doesn't God look good on me today? You know, in our Bible series, we've been talking about... Hello. In our Bible series, we're up to Abraham in Genesis here. And Abraham is the beginning of our faith. Faith in one. Abraham is really the beginning of faith. What Abraham comes down to is there is only God. There is only God. And if there is only God, that means all the stuff I don't like is in God too. It's not there's God and the stuff I don't like. There is God. And it's a difficult concept to accept, to embrace. And so there is only God. And years ago when I really started studying this, it was much easier for me to embrace. Over the years, and then you forget here and there. But there is only God. Now, if you don't like the word God, use a different word. It doesn't matter. The word doesn't matter. But what we're talking about is the omnipresence, the omniscience, the omnipotence. There is only principle you can do. There is only law. There is only love. And if there is only that, there can't be something else. So, within God I can hate myself, but there is only God. Now, what are the characteristics I wish to employ while there is only God, or only principle, only love, only law? And I had to look at some of those, and when Kenneth was saying, humility looks good on you. Humility, and my definition of humility is expecting God's best. That's true humility. True humility is not, oh, thank you, God, for my good, and it's groveling. That's nice words do not impress God. God's not a person. God's not thinking. God doesn't need me to say nice words. I need me to say nice words so that I can remember God. God does not forget me because God is principle. Principle does not forget me. Believe me, principle does not forget me, and there's a few times I wish principle would. I get away with a few things. I get away with nothing. None of us gets away with anything. If I'm hating some aspect of my life, that's what I'm living in. That's the principle I'm living in. Within that, aren't you? Kenneth was singing, "Aren't you tired?" And I always tell people, don't say I'm tired of this and I'm tired of that. But I let it pass through this time because I knew what it meant. What it means is, have you had enough of it yet? And some would say, yes, I have. And I will say, no, you haven't. How do I know? Because you're still having it. We're still having that stuff. If I've had enough of it, I'm going to be thinking a brand new thought. I'm going to be raising my vibration to meet the very thing I want. And I'm going to do the work I need to do when I have had enough. And it's shocking, our threshold for pain and confusion. It's really impressive, our threshold of what we are willing to tolerate in misery. It is really impressive. Wouldn't you say so?
Yes.
Just looking at yourself. Forget your neighbor. Look at yourself and how much self-loathing you have sustained. A friend of mine had his gallbladder out a few years ago. And the doctor said he had never seen a gallbladder filled with so many stones. And I said, that's your anger bag. That's where you've been storing your anger. And so when it was out, he didn't know what to do with his anger. He was so frustrated. I said, now you're going to have to process. You no longer have that in your body to store, to physicalize into your body. So now you're going to have to do something with it. And you see, we store up our anger and we put it in different parts of our body, different cells, different tissues, and we start to swell up and things happen. And it's because I'm willing to tolerate more angst, more anxiety, more thoughts that say, I'm bad. My life is bad. There's something bad about me. Now we look at Abraham and Sarah in the Bible. Today's talk is called Change the Name. And Abraham and Sarah, I'm sure you're all familiar with because you all read your Bible. And anyway, there in the 12th chapter of Genesis starts in with Abraham and Sarah. But it starts in with Abram and Sarah. Ends with an I, S-A-R-A-I. And they're about 100 years old. She's like 80-something. He's about 100. And I thought about that. And back then, a lot of times, a year was a month. But that couldn't be the case in this case either, because then they'd be about 16 years old. And so that wouldn't work. So I'm guessing they're up there in years. And they want to have a child. Now, first thing that Abram hears in his prayer life is, because he's in confusion, he's upset. The first thing he hears is, leave your country. Leave your kinfolk. Leave. Get out of your country. And there's a lot of people that, he went to a far country. He went to a lot of Bible stuff about get out of your country. What that means is you're going to have to leave what is familiar in your thinking. You're going to have to leave your victim. If you want this freedom that you say you want, you're going to have to leave your victim. You can't keep part of your victim and expect to live well. Because believe me, it's like a lint collector. The victim is a big lint collector. It just attracts more. It just attracts more, and it attracts more. But prosperity's a lint collector too, and prosperity will attract more and attract more and attract more. Depends what you're using it here for. And so, Abram, he had to leave, and he and his wife, and Sarah with an I means bitter. She's bitter. And Lot is, what is Lot? I've got to look it up here. I forget here, and let there be light. I bring the book, let's use it. Elizabeth Sand Turner, one of Unity's writers, she did a beautiful job of metaphysical Bible interpretation in 3 different books. And this one's is New Testament here. And it says, metaphysically, Abraham represents the first step in the redemption of man from mortal to spiritual consciousness, meaning believing in the world as real. Believing in this floor is real. Believing that if this floor would change, my life would be okay. If you would change, my life would be okay. If the ceiling or the sky or the weather or my money or my food or, would change, I would be okay. If my appetites would change, I'd be okay. And what Abraham represents metaphysically and what we teach in metaphysics is, if my mind would change, I would realize I am okay. If my mind would change, I would come to the realization that I am okay just as it is. Just as it is. Remember, all this stuff that we're screaming about here can only happen when we have a body. When there's no body, there's no more of these physical problems. So, if you don't want these physical problems in your body, do something about them now while you're here in this body with this mind. And it means attach your mind to the Spirit, to principle. With all thy getting, get understanding. So, we have, in the beginning of the story, Abraham is called, where he's Abram and his wife Sarah is called Sarai. And their names are later changed, which we'll talk about in just a moment here. It says Abram was 75 years of age when he heard the voice inside him. And what that means metaphysically really is that he was mature in understanding. They made these people old so you could grasp in the story. Oh, they can hear it. And it said, Abram, get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house unto the land that I will show thee, and I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and be thou a blessing, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Now, you see, what is the blessing? When I get out of my father's beliefs, my grandparents' beliefs, all limited thinking, when I get away from that, when I go into a new country of my own, get into my own country, not their country, my own country, that means the realm of spiritual understanding. once that happens, once I have spiritual understanding, then I can see you properly, and you properly, and you properly, and you properly, and everybody properly around me, because I'm seeing people and I'm making them up. But once I see them correctly, that's when all the earth becomes great. When I see you as me, and you as me, and you as me, and you as me, and you, and you, and you, and you as me, then there's no separation. There is only God. There's only love, there's only peace, there's only joy, there's only wisdom. Because then I can see how no matter what you're saying or doing, I don't have to fear you. I don't have to make up something about you. I'm connected to you. If you and I are one, then where's the threat? It's when I think we're separate that I start telling myself a story. I start telling myself my mother's story, my father's story, my grandparents' story, that I should fear you, that you could hurt me, or that I could hurt you. And those are made up. That's all made up stuff. So then we get down here. Let's go down here to. Get thee out of thy country. Spiritual realization. Here's the tough part for us, but it's possible. Demands an entirely new viewpoint on everything. We're clear on that. Spiritual realization demands an entirely new viewpoint on everything. And that's been our battle. That's why we come here in incorrect perception. We bring up stuff, that this is bad and we think something is bad. I need a new viewpoint on everything I think is bad. Let's start with that. A new viewpoint on everything I think is bad. Everything I want to criticize, I need a new viewpoint on. Everything I wish were different, I need a new viewpoint on. Because I keep trying to change the thing I think I want to be different. And I'm trying to change it from the outside so that I can be okay on the inside. And it's overwhelming. It's much too big a job for me, I'm finding out. How about you? Is changing your world, have you discovered you're really not up to the task of changing everything from the outside, from fixing all the politics and all the politicians and all the food and all the gluten and all the nuts and all the water and all the weather and all your neighbors to the right and to the left and down the street and everybody. It's overwhelming. For me to be hating food, for me to be hating my hair, for me to hate weight, for me to hate my feet, for me to hate my hands, for me to hate you, for me to hate my mother and my father, it's too much. It's just too much. However, there is a simple solution, and it's what we here call God. Good, orderly direction. I have to have a different thought about all of it. And when I change my thought, all that other stuff changes. The universe shape-shifts. When I change my thought, everything around me changes because I'm no longer seeing it in that other way. And that's when humility has taken hold. That's when I have become humble, when I am willing to know there is love here. I know there is, and I'm willing to see it. So show it to me. And if I forget, well, then that's what I experience in God today, is the forgetting. And I don't have to hate myself for forgetting, because that will just lengthen the time span of forgetting. So, she goes on to say, our environment is of our own making a true picture of our state of consciousness. Since we make the conditions of our lives, we can change them. Our destiny is heaven, not a place of bliss to which we go after death, but a consciousness of oneness with God. This comes to each when he is disciplined, purified, and lifted by grace and his own effort. While this is a happier viewpoint, it is also one that is more difficult to assume. For the responsibility of growth and unfoldment is placed upon the individual. It deprives him of all excuses for deficiencies. We are glad for the illumination afforded by truth when it first comes to us. We feel like new creatures and are eager to enter the new land. They're always moving to a new land, a new land. All those people, they're moving to a new land, and it means a new thought, moving to a new perception. Always moving, getting into what they call the promised land, which is the awakened state. Where's that one? I wanted about Sarah, darn it. You think you have everything. Okay, what we're going to talk about here is when they got to the new land. And we're going to talk about Lot, Sodom, Gomorrah next week. Nice happy topic. But when they got to the new land, Abram offered, Lot, which do you want? And Lot took the fertile valley there so he could plant his farm. Left Abram and Sarah with the hilly country. And they thought, okay, this is what I did. And now it may seem that I was generous and I lost. But then he prayed. He went to pray and said, no, on a hill you can see. The hill represents vision. Up high represents vision. And so go up to the height. And it was there that he and Sarah knew they wanted a child. They really wanted a child, but too old to have children. And then in prayer, oh yes, you're going to have a child, but here's what you have to do. We're going to put an H in both your names. You're going to become Abraham and you're going to become Sarah. Because the H represents the breath of God. That's what that means, the breath of God in there. So Abraham, Sarah. But Sarah wasn't quite ready to accept. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I'm going to have a child at this age? Are you kidding me? Yes, you're going to have a child at this age. Just accept it now. And they did. And they did with the breath of God. With the breath of God, it happened. The breath of God. Miracles, what we call miracles, which are everyday happenings in God that we don't understand how to manipulate here in our mind. That's what a miracle is. It's an everyday happening in truth, in principle, in law, because it can't happen outside of law. And it happens. That's what a miracle is. It's something that takes place that I can't explain. You know, it is the lifting of obsession from an addiction. I can't explain how one person can go into a 12-step meeting and have no obsession to pick up that substance, and another one will do all the same things, and the obsession does not leave for months and months and months on end. You can't explain that. My obsession was lifted very quickly for a lot of things. I found a few new ones, but I can't explain how you get through a traffic jam quickly, except when one says, this is where I am now, instead of, I should not be here now, this is bad, it's never going to end. That traffic jam takes a lot longer. But I can't explain how the universe shapeshifts. I can't explain how exactly you can't find your keys, and then you do in the very room you just looked in. I can't explain that. Those are little miracles. Or is there a big miracle and a little miracle? I don't know. I think they're all the same size. I think Charles Fillmore says that God can do much as easily as God can do a little, so stop asking God for a little, as if you think that is humble. I told you before, I was at a graduate ordination years ago for an interfaith seminary, and there was one teacher there who had a lot of difficulty with her legs, and she was leading a prayer, and at the end of the prayer she said, and God, you could make my legs just one little bit better, I would be so grateful. And I thought, why is she taking all that time to ask for a little bit better when she could take the same amount of time and ask for a full total healing? If you believe in praying that way, that asking for God will help you, ask for the whole thing. Don't bother to ask for crumbs. Get a new God if your God only can give crumbs. And if we're making it up anyway, make up one that has the whole package. So many of us have received so abundantly, so incredibly abundantly. Don't negate it for a moment. But it is very clear, as we're going to learn as we go through the Bible, that abundance is in the physical form is cyclical. It goes up, and it goes down, and it goes up, and it goes down, and it goes up again. Do not curse on the downward spiral. Just know, it's going to go up again. Of course it is. Of course it is. There's no absence of good in truth, in principle. I don't have to worry about that. Perhaps this downward spiral is a good time for me to pray. And another good time to pray is on the upward. And another good time to pray is at the top. They always said, the two best times to go to church are the times you want to and the times you don't want to. The two best times to pray are the times you feel like it and the times you don't feel like it. The best times to be kind are the times you want to and the times you do not want to. The best times to love yourself is all the time. The best time. And so, would you change the name of anything you don't like? Would you change the name, because you're naming it, would you change the name of any part of your life that you have been calling bad? Would you change the name of anything you call lack? Would you change the name of anything that you see as blocking, as putting up the wall between you and what you know as God? Would you change the name first inside and then change it in the world? Would you do that? Would you be willing to know there is only God, and therefore this is not a bad thing, it's just uncomfortable, and I don't have to call the name uncomfortable bad. It's just uncomfortable. Just as all that good is uncomfortable. And all that love and all that peace and all that joy is just as uncomfortable as all that misery for a lot of us. You've been waiting. So who's here been waiting forever for a new relationship, and you get one, and you're in hell, and it's everything about it is lovely, and you're still in hell because you could lose it. You get a new car, and you're in hell. You get money, and you're in hell. You get all the stuff you've been praying for, all the stuff we're all going to go to Tanya Murphy's class for this week to manifest, to put us into thoughts. But I could get it and then lose it. So, if you have it right now, really enjoy it. Thank you.